I was asked to come back and help in New Hampshire, so here I am in New Hampshire, and here we are. We got 14 days left. This is it, you know what I mean? So this is crunch time, so we're really in a great situation here where we've got the opportunity to really make our voices count and show the world that we don't want corruption anymore. We don't want all this nasty stuff with greed, you know, hurting our loved ones. So this is how we take a stand. We do it by supporting Tulsi, and we're just so honored and privileged to have Tulsi here tonight with us. So thank you, Tulsi, for everything. It's such a privilege.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, and thank you all for coming out here this evening. I want to say thanks to Paul here at Cranmore. Paul, can you raise your hand? You are the man. You've made this whole day possible. Our being able to come here and spend an afternoon snowboarding, inviting friends and supporters and people in the area to come and join us, and to be able to gather here this evening was really made possible because of Paul's great hospitality and his incredible team here, who've been nothing but kind and helpful and flexible all day long. So really, really thank you so much. Yeah. It takes many hands. It takes many hands and hearts to make these days possible. As Billy mentioned, we're 14 days out from Election Day. I don't know whether I'm happy or terrified by that. There's never quite enough time, but we're really appreciating the opportunity to spend every single day going town by town all across New Hampshire and just having conversations like the one we're going to have here tonight. I want to start off by helping us get better acquainted with each other, if you will indulge me. If you are a Democrat, raise your hand. All right, thank you. If you are Republican, raise your hand. All right, thank you. If you are independent or libertarian, raise your hand. Awesome. Awesome. This is the similar kind of response we're getting everywhere we go. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. It gives me hope, because right here in this room tonight, it directly answers the question that I get asked so often is, Tulsi, how do we overcome these divides? How do we as a country begin to come together as a country once again? And it's happening. It's happening every single day in rooms just like this, where a diverse group of individuals like yourselves can come together and share this space with respect, because we are here for one reason. We care about our country. We care about our future. And even as we may have different ideas on how best to solve the challenges we face in this country, we know that we stand firmly together on the bedrock of this nation that's rooted in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. This is what gives me hope, because even as Washington is so filled with this us versus them culture of let's see who can get the most power or get the most money, it is a terribly hyper-partisan situation. But it gives me hope, because I know there are people all across the country who, like us here tonight, understand that it is only we, the people, that can bring about the answers to this challenge that we face. Only we, the people, who have the power to bridge the divides. And as simplistic as it may sound, what we're doing here tonight is exactly how it happens. That rather than staying sequestered in our own corners, huddled Republicans there, Democrats there, independents there, libertarians there, instead of further deepening these divides, we're coming together, being able to have a real dialogue, bring perspectives on different issues that maybe we didn't have before, understanding when we come from that common place of love of country and a deep care for our communities, our family, our country, and our future, this is how we make it happen. So I am hopeful and inspired and grateful that all of you made the time to come here tonight, because you've already taken that step that is greater than others, in that you are choosing to be the change. You are choosing to be the solution. So one might say then, okay, well, this is fine. You know, we're neighbors, we're friends, we're coworkers. We can come together in a place like this. What about Washington? How do we fix what's broken there? It starts with leadership. The kinds of leaders that we as voters choose to elect to work for us in this country, and never forgetting that we have the power as voters. We have the power to hire or to fire and to hold leaders accountable for the decisions that they're making or the kind of job that they're doing. I think it's sad that for a long time, well, over time, I would say, we see how more and more people just aren't voting at all. Staying home, saying it's not worth it. There's nothing we can do to fix it. So I'm not going to waste my time to be a part of a broken system. Just last night at the town hall we had in Meredith, I talked a little bit about this, and a gentleman came up to me at the end, and he said, Tulsi, I think he said, I'm 62 years old, and I've never voted in my entire life because I never felt I had a reason to vote. But I'm voting for you now, because finally he felt that he had something to vote for, someone to vote for, not just saying, well, gosh, who's the least worst option available to me? Or who am I voting against, and I'll take whoever's better than that person. No, actually having a reason to come out and be the change. And this is really what we need to get back to. In the United States of America, we deserve better than to just have to not than to just be in a position where you're voting against someone. So it starts with leadership. It starts with us as voters across the country choosing the kind of leadership we want for our country. As president, I will bring this culture of leadership that puts country first, that puts service to the American people above all else, and therefore treating everyone with respect. All of my fellow Americans across the country, regardless of what political party you may belong to, or if you have no political affiliation whatsoever. And doing the same with leaders in Congress, that rather than having partisan politics driving every single decision that's made, bringing people together and saying, hey, let's find solutions. First, really understand the root cause of the problems that we face. Stop just reacting to the headline and putting Band-Aids on things so that things never actually get solved, but actually understand the root cause of the problems and come together to solve them. When I was first elected in 2012 in Congress, there were 84 new members of Congress elected that year, 50 Democrats and 34 Republicans. For us Democrats who got elected, we were coming into a very strong Republican majority in the House. And so knowing I was coming into a partisan environment, I went to some folks who'd been in and around Washington who understood the system very well when I first got there, and I said, okay, what's your advice? Give me some advice. And the one piece of advice that really struck me was, Tulsi, because you're coming in as a freshman Democrat with a strong Republican majority, don't expect that you can pass legislation. It's just not going to happen. They won't bring your bills to the floor for a vote, so don't waste your time doing that. Instead, maximize your impact by giving speeches on the House floor, maybe talking through the media, but just using your voice, because legislatively, you don't have any options. That really was a sad thing for me to hear, because I had just spent all this time campaigning, spending time with people on every single island across Hawaii, hearing from them, hey, Tulsi, here's my #1 issue. Here's what I want you to try to tackle. Whether it's affordable housing or sustainable and organic agriculture, supporting small businesses, investing in infrastructure, protecting our environment, really serious everyday issues that not only impact my constituents in Hawaii, but impact people across the country. This is what I was going to Washington to tackle. So I didn't accept that advice and instead started to think about how can I build relationships with the 433 other members of Congress not from Hawaii. And I started with the most basic, universal language that I appreciate, and I think everyone does, which is food. What better way to open the door, hopefully open some hearts, than, you know, through some amazing macadamia nut toffee that my mother makes. So I called Mom back in Hawaii and I asked if she would make 434 boxes of her toffee. No big deal, right? Small ask. She said, oh yeah, I think that's a great idea. She's happy to help. I said, I'm not done, I have one more favor. Can you make another 435 larger boxes of toffee for the staff of every member of Congress? I had worked in between my 2 deployments to the Middle East as a legislative aide for one of our US senators from Hawaii, who at that time was chairing the Veterans Affairs Committee, and understand very clearly how much hard work goes into doing the work, doing the people's work, doing the research, doing the writing, all of these things. And so she paused just for a moment to say, I think it might take me a little bit longer, but I'm happy to help. And so as she's in Hawaii starting to put the toffee together, she's stirring 2 pots at the same time, chopping the macadamia nuts, pouring the toffee. My dad called me just to let me know that he was helping her by being the quality control officer. True story. Every single pan that she poured, he made sure to let me know he was tasting a piece out of it. So it was good quality. I don't think anyone was ever bad, but you know, he did his part. So as they were doing that, I was handwriting personal notes to every one of my colleagues, introducing myself to them, and sharing a little bit about my background, and just signing every note saying, I look forward to serving with you. Started to deliver these little gifts of aloha, as I called them, and very quickly on the House floor, during votes, usually there's 1 to 3 voting sessions per day in Congress, and it's the only time when we're all in the same room together. Members of Congress from other parts of the country, from other committees that I wasn't serving on, chairmen of powerful committees, they started finding their way to me on the House floor, asking me, hey, where's this new member of Congress from Hawaii? I got to talk to her. Finding me and just saying thank you. Many of them following that up with, I ate it all, and can you hook me up with some more before I go home this weekend? Otherwise, I'll get in trouble. And then most importantly, saying, tell me what's going on in Hawaii. What are your constituents most concerned about? You know, what are the issues that are your priority to begin working on here, now that you're in Congress? Let's work together. Let me see how I can help. That simple gesture of just reaching out with respect, without preconditions, without picking and choosing, well, maybe I'll work with you because I think you're cool, but you're not, so I'm not gonna try to work with you. You're on my team, you're not on my team. No preconditions. Reaching out to everyone saying, let's serve together. And this really built a strong foundation for me as a brand new member of Congress in the minority to be effective. I passed my very first bill that I introduced as a member of Congress into law in a record period of time because of these relationships. Amendments that many said would be impossible to bring to the floor for a vote came to the floor for a vote because of the relationships that I had built with the chairman of the Rules Committee. Building these relationships where I had the ability to make a phone call and get it returned, that to have a conversation where it was built on trust and respect, where we both knew that we could have an honest talk. And sometimes at the end of that conversation, the answer was, Tulsi, I've heard you, but I don't agree. You don't have my support. Maybe next time. Other times, those conversations that I thought would have ended badly ended up great. They said, you've made some great points. Makes sense. I'll support your bill. You have my vote. The point being that we were able to have this dialogue because we didn't have to break through these barriers of, hey, are you going to tell me the truth? Are you trying to set me up for failure? Are you trying to make me look bad in some way, shape, or form? Understanding that, hey, while we represent maybe different parties, different constituencies, different views on issues, that we really want to get something done for the country. And I was able to do that as a result. This experience that I've had serving in Congress, in the minority for the first 6 years there, now it's my 8th year in Congress, is that experience that I'll bring to the White House, where immediately I'll invite leaders from the House and the Senate, members of Congress from other parts of the country, to begin this dialogue, not just once, but on a regular basis, at least once a month. Just like any one of us does in our own workplaces or families or communities, if you need to get something done, you've got to be able to talk to the people who you work with. You've got to be able to listen to the people who you work with, to be able to work out your differences on issues. It's unfortunate that both under this administration and the previous one, it makes headlines anytime leaders from Congress are invited to go to the White House. Why is that? It hardly ever happens. And too often when it does happen, the talking points for the press conference after the meeting are already pre-scripted and the outcome is predetermined, so it's really just all for show. How do you be productive in that kind of situation? You can't, which is why we're in the situation that we're in. So we bring about this change by changing this culture of leadership to one that is putting country first, to one that is truly about having a government of, by, and for the people. Setting that tone of leadership and continuing, not just on election day, but continuing ourselves as voters to expect more and demand more from our own elected leaders. Not just having the bar be so low as to say, well, if Congress passes a budget and appropriations bill before the end of the fiscal year to avert a government shutdown, mission accomplished. There's so much more that needs to be done, and it requires leaders to put country first and check the partisanship at the door. Just so you can fully appreciate and understand the importance and the impact of what I'm sharing with you tonight, we have some of my mom's macadamia nut toffee here that we want to share with all of you. As we start to pass the microphone around, we'll start the conversation and think about if you have a question you want to ask or a concern you want to share. There will be, I think, a couple. Here we go. We got a couple of things of some gold-wrapped goodness. I can't say it's healthy. I'm sorry. It's pretty much like butter, sugar, and nuts. But I encourage you to have one because they're very, very good. I'd love to open the conversation up to questions and concerns, thoughts that you'd like to share. Can be on anything that you're most concerned about now. We have the microphones. Yes, we'll start here in the front.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I get a little starstruck, so sorry about that.
No. What's your name?
First of all, Christopher.
Thank you, Christopher.
And you have my vote. I'll
Thank
just
you.
confess right now. I wanted to say thank you. 3 thank yous. 1, thank you for your example in Congress, just for the person you are. Thank you for your leadership there.
Thank you.
And thank you for running for president. Because I started following you 4 years ago this month.
Thank you.
And we need you. So I just want to say that. But my concern is, it's more of a concern. I can't understand because you speak truth that we all can relate to, very honestly. And it resonates with me. So when I see, when I don't see you covered fairly, it makes me think there's a big conspiracy theory, and I don't want to be thinking that. I try to be like, there's got to be a reason, and I can't figure it out. Am I crazy? That's my question. I don't know if anybody
You're
else
not
has
crazy. No, you're not crazy. And thank you very much. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it. And you say that you need me, I need you. This is not about me or my future. This is about our future as a country. Not a single one of us individually can make the change we need to see. It'll only happen if we all stand together and work side by side to do so. Now, the obstacles are great. You know, there's a lot of folks who in Washington, the powerful elite, who are really concerned about holding on to that power, and who try to shut out voices of truth or voices that bring a different perspective, a different experience, because in my view, it challenges the very foundation of that power, any dissenting voices. This is the challenge that we're up against. And it's unfortunate because really this isn't about just me and I need to have my voice heard. There's a bigger issue here about voters here in New Hampshire and across the country being able to have their voices reflected on the national platform and to be able to have access to the information and awareness to make that best decision when it comes time to cast your vote on election day. And when you have a few people in positions of power depriving voters from being able to be exposed to that information, that's really where the disservice to the nation comes in. And it's tough, but it's not insurmountable. You know, there are so many different platforms and ways for us to be able to get our message out there, for all of us to lift our voices, whether it's directly, individually, person to person, online, social media, alternative media, news media. And really what I see is just maximize every opportunity possible to get the word out there about what we as a country need to do to take back our own government and make sure it's working for us. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Christian. I am from Berlin, New Hampshire. If you look on a map, it might look like Berlin. It's Berlin. I'm from a community that was completely destroyed by the opioid epidemic. I've lost many friends. I've even lost my father to the opioid crisis. What are your solutions to this problem that's affecting so many areas now?
Can I just, if you don't mind sharing with your father in particular, what happened that led to
So a lot of it,
his passing?
in my father's case, it was basically prescription opioids that ended up being abused over time,
Yeah.
led to an overdose on heroin.
Yeah. Thank you. Christian?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing what happened to your father and friends and to so many other people within your community and really so many other people across the country. This is an unfortunate thing that it seemed like for a short time the opioid crisis and epidemic was getting a lot of coverage and exposure in the media, raising awareness to communities and people across the country how serious this issue is. But it's not getting that kind of attention anymore, even though so many people are seeing their lives or their families or their communities ravaged by this epidemic, which really means we haven't solved the problem. My approach to this as president would begin with two important things. Number one is accountability. Accountability for the big pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma who have lied and cheated their way into proliferating these drugs in our communities and on our streets, making them more and more easily accessible. And those culpable, whether they are doctors or dentists or pharmacists, who either intentionally or unintentionally carelessly overprescribe these drugs without either warning their patients about how addictive they are or being very careful in how much they are prescribing to be able to exercise that kind of oversight to make sure that there's not an abuse of those drugs happening. My husband got his wisdom teeth pulled a few years ago, and he was prescribed a bottle full of Oxycontin, I believe it was, or oxycodone. And the dentist just said, you know, if you feel like you need them, take them. That was it. If you're in pain, this will help. And, you know, he's somebody, he hardly likes to take Tylenol, so he didn't take it. But it wasn't until the height of the news coverage around the opioid crisis that we were all watching that it really struck him hard in remembering that if he had been in a lot of pain and had started to take it without knowing how highly addictive they were, he could have been one of these victims of this opioid epidemic without even realizing it, which has happened to so many people. Raising information and awareness around these highly addictive opioids is absolutely essential to try to prevent more people from falling victim to it. Recovery, really dedicating the resources necessary in a way that we have yet to be seen is what we as a country need to do to help us as a country get back on track. I've visited some recovery centers and homes here in New Hampshire. What I've often heard is there's not nearly enough beds for those who need them, especially for women. There are significantly lower numbers of beds available for women in these recovery centers. And with the recovery homes, it's great for many who have the health insurance that'll cover the cost of it. But if you don't have good health insurance and you're in need of help, often you're really out of options. So dedicating those resources to real recovery, I think, is essential. And the last thing I'll mention on this came up in a conversation I had with a gentleman who's 4 years sober now, but who saw his whole life destroyed because of his addiction to opioids. He's now started a small business and he's hiring people who are on that path of recovery. But his point was that he is still in pain every single day. And it's an internal pain, not a physical pain. And he struggles every single day. And so his point was that as a country, we should be trying to look towards what is it that's driving people to take these drugs. A vast shortage in mental health care and resources available, not just in the way of, well, we're going to give you more drugs to try to numb whatever it is you're dealing with, but really actually getting to the heart of the problem and providing the support in a very holistic way for people, whether they're veterans like my friends dealing with severe post-traumatic stress or other traumas that people in our country are dealing with. We've got to think outside the box and actually help people heal. It's kind of a long answer, but there's no simple solution to this. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your story. We've been to Berlin. We had a town hall there a little while ago, and I did make the mistake of saying, oh, hi, yeah, I'm here in Berlin. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. I know Coos County. Do I get brownie points for that? Yes.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having such a fun and interactive event today.
Thanks for coming today.
And thank you for riding the ski lift with me up. I appreciate his question about the opioid crisis, but my question is, so on a personal note, I have a hemorrhage in my sinuses that it happened today on the mountain where I get super lightheaded and I leak
Oh my gosh.
cerebral spinal fluid through my nose. And I don't have health insurance. My dad is out of the picture, and my mom is not in she's disabled and not in a position to provide for me on her health insurance. So it's been happening for over a year now.
How old are you?
And 23. So I have that problem, and then I'm also wearing a giant metal exoskeleton, I guess, on my knee right now, or else I wouldn't be able to ski today because I sprained my knee 3 times in the past year. And I basically I haven't met the doctors in 3 years, basically can't afford it. So I'm out of the picture on insurance. I can't afford health insurance, and I can't afford to go to the doctor. So I basically want to know what your general stance is on helping out people like me.
Are you in school? Are you working? Or
I'm graduated.
You've graduated?
Criminal justice degree.
Okay. Are you employed or looking for work?
Currently
Or
employed, yeah, I'm a truck driver.
but there's no insurance offered through your employment?
Not at the moment, no.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had no idea that you were even being so impacted today, and I'm very concerned for your health. Have you had this checked out at all?
Not at all.
I think you need to do that. Go to the emergency room or something.
It's been a little less than a year. It started like last summer, so I'm planning on.
Don't
Soon.
wait. Don't wait. These are not things that, you know, it's your life. And I want to get to answer your question about healthcare policy, but I want to make sure that you're okay. Not a healthcare provider in any way, so I don't know anything about these kinds of symptoms, but I'm very concerned for your health and well-being.
It comes and goes.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It happens for like every day for like a week, and then it stops for like 2 months, and then it comes back again.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you afterwards. That's all right. You are the exact example that embodies why we need a complete reform of this system that we have called a healthcare system, but it's really not a healthcare system because people like you exist all across the country who are potentially facing serious health problems or are facing serious health problems and are not able to get the care that you need. It's outside of reach. Even for those, we still have tens of millions of people who are uninsured like yourself and can't afford to go to the doctor, especially when you need it most. But there are tens of millions more people who are insured, but who have such high deductibles that ultimately, even in the position that you are in now, that they still can't afford to go in and get that care because of a $15,000 or $20,000 deductible. The system that we have now is a profit-driven system that benefits big insurance and big pharma to the detriment of the American people and our health and well-being as a country. This is at the heart of what needs to change and why the change that we need to bring about cannot be just tweaking around the edges. We have so many people who are underinsured in this country who are not represented in the statistics when people paint a rosier picture than one that actually exists. I've met and spoken with so many people who have some of the best in the platinum health insurance plans, who pay a ton of money every month in their premiums, but when they've had to go in for a surgery or they've had a car accident, a motorcycle accident, they've found that they don't have anywhere near the kind of care or coverage that they can afford, that even after paying all this money, they are not able to walk in and get that care. What we need in this country is a guaranteed health care system for every single American, no matter where you live or how much or how little you make. I've looked at the systems that exist in developed countries around the world, and I think one that would work best here is loosely modeled after Australia. I call it a single payer plus plan, where there's guaranteed quality health care for every single American, while still allowing the choice and the option for those if you would like to purchase supplementary private insurance or your employer has a good plan that you're happy with. Of course, you have the opportunity to stay with that. But that does not in any way undermine your ability to get the health care that you need when you need it. It is absolutely unacceptable that in the United States of America, in a country where for so long and continuing today, we spend far more on health care than any other country in the world, and yet we have worse outcomes. And so many people just like you who can't get the care that you need. You haven't gone to the doctor because you don't want to know what the bill would be and you know that you couldn't pay for it. But your life is on the line. Your life is on the line. It sounds like draining of spinal fluid, cerebral spinal fluid. It's a pretty serious thing. It's not something to mess around with. And whether it's you or many other families who are in this situation, you don't want to have to think twice about the life of your loved ones hanging in the balance because you're worried about the bill that's going to come in the mail. This is an issue that I was asked about earlier today, I did an interview with your local newspaper, and they said, but how do you get it done? How do you get this passed through Congress? It's not going to be easy, but not for the reasons that you think. It's not going to be easy because of the huge amount of influence that big insurance and big pharma have over members of Congress on both parties. It's not really the partisanship, I think, that is the biggest barrier. It's this pay-to-play culture in Washington where you have lobbyists actually helping to write our legislation that impacts our lives. This healthcare crisis that we're facing in the country is not just impacting Democrats, it's impacting Americans across party lines who are crying literally for our lives and our health and well-being. So I am confident that we will come together as a country to find the solutions that we need, but we've got to make sure that our leaders in Washington are actually working for our well-being and not for the profits of big insurance and big pharma. We'll talk after.
The last time I did any campaigning was, I think, for Eugene McCarthy when I was a little boy, and I've gotten very excited about your campaign.
Thank you.
I've heard you say over and over the cost of war being somewhere around $6 trillion, and I was just curious. There's about 300 plus million Americans, and how does that divide into 6 trillion? And it comes out to about $20,000 for every single person in this country, $20,000. And then you hear there's about 40 million Americans that don't have $400, for a medical emergency. And, it's just the scales seem to be so far out of balance.
That's right.
And I just wanted, because you're talking a lot
Absolutely.
about the cost of war and how it's affecting.
Yeah.
If everyone in the country had $20,000 in their pocket right now, it would be a different country.
Change our lives. Thank you. Thanks for raising this issue. It's one that I bring up all the time because of that impact that it has on our ability or inability to be able to pay for the things that we need right here in our communities at home. You mentioned 6 trillion, 7 trillion. The exact dollar amount is really hard to quantify, but it's estimated somewhere over $7 trillion since 9/11 alone has been spent on waging regime change wars in other countries that have not made us any safer. So you're right to ask, well, what could we do with those dollars here at home? And I say that this is hard to quantify or measure because these wars are continuing as we speak, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan. They're going on now as we're gathered here tonight. We still have troops deployed downrange. We still have our taxpayer dollars coming out of our pockets. And really the legitimate question to ask is, if it's not making us any safer, why are we doing it? What is it for? It's a big number that does not include the cost of taking care of our veterans here at home. It's a big number that does not fully cover the cost that's coming from many other federal agencies outside of the Department of Defense that's pouring into some of these other countries. In Afghanistan alone, I'll use this one example, we are spending $4 billion every month right now. $4 billion a month. And we have been for quite some time. That comes out to $5.5 million per hour. $4 billion a month. You looked at the breakdown across the country. $4 billion a month, let's say 6 weeks in Afghanistan, would cover the entire annual appropriations for the state of New Hampshire. 1 year of your state's funding equals 6 weeks of what we as taxpayers are spending in Afghanistan. So In this interview I did earlier today, one of the reporters said, you always talk about foreign policy, let's talk about something else. You always talk about the cost of war, let's talk about something else. There's a reason why I bring it up, because you're hearing a lot of different plans and ideas and thoughts about how we solve many of these challenges we face here at home from many candidates, but no one else is talking about the cost of war and how it is central to every other issue that we face. That how can I stand here and talk to you about how we need more resources to go towards opioid recovery without telling you we got to stop wasting money in Afghanistan so we can bring that $5.5 million an hour to actually serve the people of Berlin, the people who are suffering from this opioid crisis. How can I stand here and tell you that we need more funding for education, more special education teachers in our classrooms, more paraprofessionals to be able to help make sure that our kids are getting the education that we need, if I'm not telling you we got to stop wasting $4 billion a month in Afghanistan so that our kids can get the best education possible? You cannot separate these issues, which is why, this is why I'm running for president and not staying in Congress. Because as president and commander-in-chief alone, I can directly impact the foreign policy decisions we're making in this country. I can directly, after taking office, begin to get our troops out of Afghanistan and stop wasting our money there. We have to work with Congress. It's a co-equal branch of government on many issues, but the Constitution gives the authority to set foreign policy to the president and commander-in-chief. And this is where the decision you have before you is so critical. Because immediately, I'll bring that experience that I have, having served on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services and Homeland Security Committees in Congress for 7 years, that preparedness that I've gained from having served in uniform myself now almost 17 years in the Army National Guard, from those 2 deployments to the Middle East, that'll allow me to walk in on day 1 to fulfill this responsibility as commander-in-chief, end these wasteful regime change wars, this new Cold War and arms race, which are draining us of our resources and not making us any safer, and instead redirect our taxpayer dollars towards really serving the urgent needs of our loved ones, our families, and our communities right here at home. Thank you.
Robert Kemper.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the young boys who got head wounds, and you never see any pictures or anything about them. What became of these poor boys? They must be suffering.
You're talking about from the recent attack in Iraq, that there were a number of our troops there who were not immediately reported and diagnosed, but who have now been diagnosed with traumatic brain injury. They have been evacuated out of Iraq and are getting treated for that, whether it's in Germany or in our hospitals in Europe, or I don't know if they've been brought back home, but I do know that they are getting the treatment and care that they need, and most importantly have been properly diagnosed. This is one of many different examples of who pays the price for the decisions that are made both by the commander-in-chief and wars that are authorized by Congress. The consequences are very real. They're very real for all of us, for my brothers and sisters in uniform, for those who, instead of coming home on a plane like the rest of us, came home in a coffin. Those who came home and who are still struggling with making this transition from having served often multiple deployments in a war zone to now coming back and trying to gain some sense of normalcy here at home. This is the cost of war that endures in the most heart-wrenching and human way, and we must never, ever, ever forget who pays that price. Thank you. Somebody in the back there. Yes, sir.
Hey, Tulsi.
Hi.
Oh, he'll flip it on. I drove up here from North Carolina to see you.
Wow.
And chat with you. And I didn't walk. I drove, so I'm okay.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
I've been very frustrated with the way your campaign is going. You're a breath of fresh air, obviously, as everybody realizes. You're something that almost came out of the early '60s. A force for good, a force for honesty, a force for truth. I've been frustrated because you get put out of these debates. You were on a roll the first several debates. Then what happened? You went and served your country. You went and did your guard duty. That took some steam out of what was going on, and the opposition got their heads together and figured out how to keep you out of it. How many people have a Facebook account? How many people have more than a couple friends on there? Put Tulsi stuff on your Facebook and share it, everybody. I got 1,400 people, half of them I don't even know. Put it on there. This girl, and I say girl because you're younger than two of my daughters and older than my son. You are what we need. And I wish I had a good question, but I really just wanted to spout off like that, and I appreciate you allowing me to do it.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And thank you for making the drive. I hope you're going to stick around for a little while. Okay, good. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir. We've got a microphone there for you. Perfect.
Jeff Maynard from Jackson. I have 3 daughters in their mid to late 30s, one of them a year older than you. All 3 of them are still paying off student loans. The financial institutions seem to have, when the mortgage market tanked, they shifted that profit motive to the next generation, and they're paying for it. And I would like your comments on that.
Thank you. Can I ask what do your daughters do for a living? What's their profession?
2 nurse practitioners and a doctor of physical therapy, and yet they probably qualify for food stamps because the monthly payment on the loans is ridiculous. I mean, the total over for the 3 of them at one point was over $300,000.
Jeez. And they're not alone. They're not alone. It is all over the country. It is both people of my generation, the next generations that have graduated since, and even those who've come before us who are still trying to pay off these student loans. And I agree with you that the lending institutions, one of which includes the government, our government, is making a lot of money off of this student debt crisis, not only with the interest rates not only with the charging of interest in the first place, but how these interest rates continue to increase. That's got to stop. There's a few things that I think Congress can do immediately to begin to address this issue. Number one is that make it so it's not a profit-making industry. If we're serious as a country about investing in education and empowering young people to be able to pursue their profession of their choosing and to get the education and skills they need to do so, we need to make it so that it is not a situation where our government and the financial industries are profiting off of it. Number two, we need to treat student debt in the same way that we treat every other kind of debt in this country when it comes to our bankruptcy laws. The fact that student debt alone is excluded from that when someone files for bankruptcy is further proof of your point. That this, no matter what happens to an individual or their financial situation, those lenders know that that debt will continue to endure. and that it'll stick around with someone for the rest of their lives. I think we've got to get to the heart of the problem of why tuitions are continuing to increase with really no accountability, even for the many educational institutions that receive federal funding of some sort. There has to be some audits going on there and some oversight over where is this money going? Why are tuitions increasing? And we're not seeing the same kind of commensurate outcome with young people graduating and then not being able to get a job, either in the profession of their choosing or one that pays them what they'll need to be able to pay off this incredible debt. I think we've got to invest more in community college, vocational training, apprenticeships, other opportunities for folks who may realize, hey, I don't want to go into debt, or I don't want to go and get a bachelor's degree just to have the piece of paper. I want to pursue another path. I think as a society, we can do a lot to help alleviate this taking on of debt if we stop seeing value in people based on what kind of degree they have, and instead see the value in every American and however they're contributing to our economy or to our society. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take one here. Yes, sir. Here we go.
I'm Peter Marcoux. I'm a 65-year-old retired veteran.
Thank you for your service, Peter.
Thank you. I'm a Republican, and I want to vote for you, but I want you to convince me. Why should I vote for you?
That as your president, that you have my personal commitment, that I will wake up every day fulfilling this commitment to serve you and to serve every American in this country. That you will never have any doubt that the decisions that I am making are being made with that mindset, that there are no other political interests or profit-based interests or anything else that will divert me from speaking the truth, calling it like it is, and bringing together people to actually serve the best interests of our country and our people. This is not something that should be so special. This is what you should expect from every one of your leaders. But unfortunately, we live in a time where hyper-partisanship and personal profit and power are what drives so many of the decisions that are being made. I can tell you probably there will be decisions that I'll make that you might not agree with. There will be other decisions that I'll make that you will agree with. But you will always have the confidence in knowing that I will not take the responsibility that I have to serve you lightly, and that every decision I'll make will be well thought out and made to serve the best interest of our country. That's my promise to you.
We have time for just one more question.
Thank you.
One more question.
One from this side. See, any lady? Yes, lady. Thank you. We haven't had any from the women yet.
Hi, is this on?
There you
Hello. My name is Jean. I'm from North Conway, right down the street. I rode my bike here.
Awesome. Awesome.
When did you first want to become president? When you were a little girl, or when did this start to gain traction in your brain?
First, let me just say that I meet so many incredible 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girls now who, some of whom just come up to me at our town halls. They're like, I'm going to be president one day. Like, right on, sister. Go for it. Another young woman who, she was 9 years old. She came to one of our town halls. Brilliant, asked this incredibly complex foreign policy question. And it wasn't just a memorized thing, because the answer that I gave, she had a follow-up question to it. Afterward, she came up, I said, God, I can't wait to vote for you for president one day. And you know what she said? Why would I want to be president? Well, I said, I don't know. I said, you obviously care and you're really smart, so why not? And she says, no, I don't want to be president. So I just want to spend my life working to help other people and to make sure everybody has a right to vote. Awesome. I was not like that when I was a kid. I was super, super shy, a total introvert. I'm the fourth of 5 kids, and if anyone in our family would have been the one to run for president, it would have been my sister, honestly. I'm saying that tonight because she's not here and she can't disagree with me. But she's the extrovert. She was outgoing, total people person, the whole thing. I was not at all. And so the thought of running for president or being involved in anything political for me as a kid growing up just didn't exist. For what I did realize from a young age, though, was that I was happiest when I was doing things for other people in a way that was unmatched. And so I didn't know exactly what path I would take in my life, but I knew it would be a path of service. I started to think about running for president in 2018 after, in the state of Hawaii, we had a serious nuclear wake-up call. How many of you know what I'm talking about? You saw it in the news. Yeah. We had early on a Saturday morning, for those of you who didn't catch this in the news, early on a Saturday morning, we got an alert that came out from our state's civil defense system on over 1 million, came on the cell phones, on television, on the radio, missile incoming, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. I was not in Hawaii. My family was. My parents, brothers, and my brothers and their families were there. I was by myself in D.C., lunchtime in D.C. on Saturday. I was sitting down on the couch about to eat a bowl of ramen noodles, and my phone started going off, and I saw this alert. And immediately, like everyone in Hawaii who saw this, I started thinking, okay, where's mom and dad? It says seek immediate shelter. I know they've got about 15 minutes. If this is real, they've got 15 minutes to go and find shelter, somewhere that will protect them from a nuclear blast, from the nuclear fallout, and from the nuclear winter that will follow, which is an impact that lasts for years. And in those moments, like everyone else, we had college kids sprinting across campus trying to find shelter, and they had no idea where to go. There was a father, he took an iPhone video for his little girl after he lowered her down a manhole, thinking that may be the only place she'd be safe. And he recorded in this video, honey, I love you. If I never see you again, I love you. As we sit here tonight, here at Cranmore, if we got that same alert here tonight, raise your hand if you know where you would find shelter. Because it doesn't exist. Because it doesn't exist. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw, is that even as there's a great alert system that would tell us if an attack was coming our way, our leaders have so completely failed us because we're in a position where this threat is so real. It's so real. That alert turned out to be false, but we reacted in the way that we did because this threat is real. Just a few days ago, we saw the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists moving the doomsday clock 100 seconds before midnight, warning us all as a country that we are closer and closer to the brink of nuclear catastrophe. We have escalating tensions between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China. North Korea continues to develop their nuclear weapons capability. Iran is now no longer complying with the nuclear agreement, and they are enriching uranium, making it possible for them to get closer to develop nuclear weapons capability. We have treaties that were put in place by people like Reagan and Gorbachev to try to reduce tensions, to reduce the nuclear threat in the world. At that time, those treaties now being torn up and thrown in the trash can. And so for me at that time, this is the major event that drove my decision to run for president, to bring voice to this issue, one that you're not hearing any other presidential candidate talk about, and to speak the truth. I know it's scary, it's terrifying, it's depressing to understand how serious this existential threat is. But I'm running for president because I know it doesn't have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. It will require courageous and strong leadership that I'll bring as president, where right away I will call for a summit between the US and Russia and China to start to de-escalate these tensions, open up lines of communication that have not been there to really focus on this issue for a long time. Lines of communication that will allow us to be able to work out our differences on serious issues while still ensuring that we can come together around areas of shared and common interests, like this increased nuclear threat. That was the motivator, and that event that really pushed me to make this decision, to offer to serve you as president, to provide that leadership so that no other family, none of you has to ever go through what we went through in Hawaii, that you can have that peace of mind, that this is not, that this threat is not something that we have to live with or that the next generation will have to live with. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, we're running out of time here. We have a limited time here in this space. I want to thank you all so much for coming here tonight. I'll be able to stick around for a few minutes if you would like to come up and say hello or take a picture. Before we do that, I want to invite Nitya up here. We have, as was mentioned, 14 days until Election Day. We have an incredible crew of volunteers who are doing a lot of great work, and Nitya is going to fill you in on what we're doing and how you can help.
Thank you, Tulsi. And I wanted to thank everybody here as well for coming. We do a lot of things to spread the news about Tulsi. And as several people have mentioned today, you know, the big media outlets aren't giving her the time of day. So it's really up to volunteers and people to get out there, knock on doors, go to all the restaurants, and talk to your friends. So a little story about me. I started volunteering for Tulsi almost a year ago now, and I want to tell you the story because I want you all to hopefully join us. So I've never been into politics before, but my dad invited me to go to Tulsi's announcement for president. So I went, and what she said, which was the truth, really shocked me. I'd never heard how much money we were spending in these wars, these problems we're having between Democrats, Republicans, not working together. So bills that needed to be passed to help local communities weren't getting passed. So on that day, I decided I'm gonna go help Tulsi. And I got on a flight to New Hampshire, and I'm still here. This is my first winter ever. I like it. It's nice. It's cold. It's snowy. But I took that step. And for some of you, this is the first time you've heard of Tulsi. For some of you, you've been to 5 or 6 or 10 of her town halls, or if you've heard about her for years. And I invite you all to fill out this page. It's called I'm Standing for America. And I stand with Tulsi. And there's some simple things you can do on here. There's for example, give $5 to Tulsi, right? We are a purely people-funded campaign. We don't accept PAC money. She was talking about special interests. We leave them at the door. We don't let them in. So, or you can post to 5 friends. Hey, post this event is coming up in my town or my area. Sometimes your friends might, you don't know how they're going to reply to it. Just do it. It's worth it, right? So, and there's many other things you can do, like I mentioned in the beginning. You can go out, talk to people. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. I help coordinate volunteers here in New Hampshire, and we have volunteers coming in from other states sometimes. They come and stay for a week or a few weeks. We have 14 days left. This is such a crucial time to get out there. Remind people that their vote counts. Their actions count. This time, more importantly than any other time ever, with these mounting tensions, we need to vote, and we need to vote for the right person. And I ask you all to join me and vote for Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nitya. I want to say thank you for spending your time here this evening. It is the most precious thing that any one of us has to give. And once given, it can never be taken back. And so thank you for choosing to spend your time here this evening. As you're leaving tonight, if you are leaving as a voter and a supporter, I'm so thankful. Please talk to one of our volunteers about how you can better help. Share things on Facebook or help spread the word. If you're leaving tonight and you're still undecided, you're still thinking things through, I still ask you to share your experience here tonight with at least 5 people to better help those around you make a better informed decision before we head into Election Day on February 11th. Only you as voters can dictate the future of our country. It's not about me or my future or what happens to me. It's about you and your loved ones, your families, our communities, and our country. Thank you for stepping up and standing up for America. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. And whatever.
Thank you.
Here's my contacts. I have a lot of experience in primaries here. My friend Andy Peterson, his father was governor. The thing is, he used to say, the guys make up their mind at closing time.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We know.
But yeah, okay.
We know.
So, but
Thank
get
you,
in touch
Tim.
with me, and pleasure
Thank
skiing.
you.
Showing
Thanks
you
for all of your help today. I appreciate it.
And I was very impressed with what you were saying.
Thank you.
You know, that you're normal.
Yep. Thank you.
So we can do your photos and stuff.
Give that to your
Okay.
husband.
All right. Cool. Thanks.
I'd love to help you in the last stretch.
Okay, good. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah, my son also no more troops. And I have one simple question. Once you're in the White House, can I get a tour in the White House?
Of course.
I mean, when you're president, I'm not interested in others.
Okay, sounds good. Deal.
Thank you very
Deal.
much.
Thank you.
I can show you this. I hope you approve of it. This one right here.
You know what? I saw this. I didn't.
You did
I
see
did.
it?
I saw
I
this.
thought no one saw that.
Absolutely. No, I saw this because I don't know what it was. Maybe I was searching your paper or something, but I saw this and it was fantastic.
Oh, you thought it was
Of
good.
course,
You approved.
absolutely. It's a
You
great
would have
message.
sign it.
This is a really, of course. This is such an important message, especially right now.
I hope that works. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There you go. Do you have a Sharpie?
Can I please sign for Sharpie?
Thank you.
In line for a picture.
Okay.
When you first time to New Hampshire, you
Oh, yeah.
This is for my son.
Okay,
He's
thank
in
you.
Air Force. Thank you very much.
So much. Thanks for
White
coming
House
back.
tour.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, Tulsi.
How are you? Paul, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Thanks
too.
for being here tonight.
Well, thank you. I mean, mahalo.
She signed it for me.
And that toffee? Oh, the bundle is on.
Oh, you
oh,
know.
Yeah, you got to do the shaka.
No.
Yo, can we do a shaka photo? We got to get the shaka.
Do a shaka?
Get in it too. We got to get the shaka. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aloha.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Didn't work.
It didn't work.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here with an open mind.
Yes. What is your education?
I went to community college and I graduated from Hawaii Pacific University with a degree in international business. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for being here.
We have the same degree, international
Oh,
business.
wow. That's fantastic.
1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Beautiful
Thank you
eyes.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want a photo?
Oh, thank you for being here. It's so nice to meet you both.
1, 2, 3. All right, I
You
got
guys
it.
want one together?
Thank you.
One together?
He doesn't want to take
Okay.
a picture with her.
Yeah, you want it?
guys are awesome. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Tulsi.
So nice seeing you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Yeah, sorry.
I'm Amy.
Nice
I was
to
wearing
meet
this
you.
hat when I saw Obama
Oh,
speak when he was running for president.
That's awesome.
So I thought maybe it'll bring you to
Yes, ma'am. Amy?
Yes. Thank you for your service to
Thank
the
you.
service in the military.
Grateful
These were fabulous. Thank you.
to be able to wear them. They're awesome.
Yeah. I might try to find more. All right.
This is my pen or
You
yours?
can keep it.
I have one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Pay more whenever.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, right here. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming, Amy. Thank you. Who's this guy?
This is Flora.
Hi, Flora. Hi.
She's a service dog in training.
Oh, hi. There we go.
Thank you. Sure, okay.
There we go. Smile for the camera, Flora.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Being here.
Thank you for being so positive.
Thank you. Great. We need more of that.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Have
so
a good
much.
night.
You too. Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm looking for my chance to get to meet you.
I'm glad you're here.
The only complaint I would have is I was hoping you'd be able to evolve your stance on the Second Amendment as a very pro-2A person.
Yeah.
There was some stuff early on in your campaign that felt very anti-Second Amendment.
I think that this is something that we've got to have more dialogue
There
around.
definitely needs to be.
And I think it can bring more new perspectives. That
It can. It's definitely not a bad thing. I myself own quote-unquote scary guns, but it's all about responsible ownership.
I agree with that.
That's good to hear that. Thank you.
Take care.
Hi, Tulsi.
How are you?
Stackpole from Massachusetts.
Nice to meet you.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating watching this take place. I'm doing whatever I can to
Thank you.
Massachusetts. Our votes are really there.
They will in this election, given you're a Super Tuesday state.
Yeah.
And I think some people think Elizabeth Warren's going to run away with it in mass, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. So
Whatever we can do on a
keep
local
doing
level.
what you're doing. I mean, it's really getting the word out locally, making sure people are getting out to vote, and wherever possible, making contributions so that we can continue to get our message out.
I'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Can I get a
I'm
picture
so
with you?
glad you came. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
All the best.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the support. How are you? Thank you. Thank you.
Right here. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Have a good night. How are you?
Hi, how's it going?
Good
I'm
to
extremely
see you.
starstruck right now.
No.
So,
What's your name?
nice, bro.
Brian. Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
I listened to the first two days, first show of the podcast.
Yeah. Awesome.
2019, a friend of mine was in that production.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, he's a really friend of mine. He's inspired me to come up there. I know look at my so I'm trying to look at he inspired me to do that. So one of the reasons I'm not going to lose president is because you just seem like I respect to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Means a lot to me. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I've been waiting so long to meet you. I'm really nervous. I'm really glad that yeah, I just wish you the best. Like, it kills when people are like, oh, Tulsi, isn't she out? She like stops. And I'm like, no, got it.
Good. Keep doing that.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything. So I wish you the best. I wish you the goals in 2020.
Where do you live now?
I've just been in town. We're just in New York.
Okay, good.
To your whole Mr. Fred. I was in New York in so I know what it's like. It's a
Like flash before your eyes.
it's a weird
So make sure you register to vote here
Yes,
before February 11th.